More than 100 years, the Indian film industry is producing films, and the role of cast and crew members is inevitable. When I say cast and crew members, it ranges from a spot boy to a celebrity camera person or a film director, which is obviously irrespective of gender. However, we have seen, and it is very evident, that the recognition of women filmmakers, those who are working behind the scene, is very meager. This is Subhrajeet Ganguly, and you have tuned into the Heritage Pod, which is a knowledge series podcast. And today, we have a very special topic. Today's topic of discussion is filmmaker, women filmmaker in India, from Fatima Begum to Payal Kapadia. To discuss this, we have a very special guest in our studio. Today we have Ms. Debarati Gupta, who is an independent filmmaker and also a columnist.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
This is a straight question to you. You as a filmmaker, as an independent filmmaker, now we are living in this era of digital communication. We have all those OTT platforms. And government is actually talking about censorship on OTT by dragging some other issues that we all know. So as a filmmaker, as an independent filmmaker, how different it is? Is it giving you a tool to tell your story, give your narrative? Because we are not living in the era of 20s and 30s where there are no other means of communication.
Right.
So are these tools actually helping the women independent filmmaker to portray their stories and disseminate their ideas?
Well, sometimes yes, and sometimes no also, because firstly, the alternative filmmaking, they always celebrated the alternative way of storytelling. Like I must mention about Arundhati Devi in this regard, because before Aparna Sen, Arundhati Devi was the first Bengali woman filmmaker, or perhaps, if I'm allowed to say, that she was perhaps the first Indian woman filmmaker who became conscious about her gender position. Because before her, there were several women filmmakers, as I mentioned about Pratima Das Gupta, Fatima Begum and Manju De. But Arundhati Devi's films started telling the narratives about women, about...
Which decade exactly?
Her first film was Chuti in 67.
67, okay.
Chuti was a story of a teenage girl played by Nandini Malia. Then she made Megho Rodro. It was a short story adaptation from Tagore's story. And it was also about a Bal Bidhva character. And then she made Podi Pishir Bormi Baksho, Leela Majumdar's short story.
Okay.
And then she made, she actually introduced Murmun Chen, and she made Deepar Prem. And recently I wrote a piece about Arundhati Devi, and I watched Deepar Prem. It was perhaps, one of her later movies, and Deepar Prem was a very modern movie, very modern film. It was about a college-going girl who decides to marry marry a man who is much inferior in terms of social strata, both in caste and class. So it is a social statement.
Absolutely.
So Arundhati Devi was perhaps the actual precursor to Aparna Sen and later filmmakers, women filmmakers. And then of course Sai Paranjape, as I mentioned about Sai Paranjape, she started filmmaking in 70s and then 80s, and then Aparna Sen. Through Aparna Sen, we, the aspiring women media workers, we got the courage that we can tell our stories.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. You need that one moment.
But there is a big but.
Okay.
That is when you are able to gather your own fund, and you somehow could manage to convince your funder or producer that you have to tell your story, and your story is marketable, it's sellable enough, you are okay. You might, navigate this place. But when you are working in a commissioned project under any channel or OTT platform, you have to
cater the commercial angle.
Yeah, you have to get under their fold.
Absolutely.
Okay, and it is my personal experience when I started writing for a particular OTT channel, a famous OTT channel, and I'm not mentioning their name or the project name also. I was told to apply, to forget about my female gaze and apply the more, the prevailing male gaze.
Okay. Okay.
Because that is what sells. Otherwise, it was their explanation and their reasons that mostly the mostly the OTT viewers are men, so they will prefer to see what they have been seeing.
Okay.
And which is
how difficult it is for
I
you
mean,
as a writer.
I was literally asked to tell a man's story and imagine myself as a man, forget about, and it is not very difficult for women storytellers who have been working in mainstream media to know about the male gaze, because
Absolutely.
we have been
You've been bombarded with such gaze all the
we
time.
Are, exactly.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Exactly. We are fed, conditioned with these kind of stories. So
This is very unfortunate, I
Yeah.
must say. So when you talk about this commercial angle, this commercial part of it, every OTT or every channel, they have their own commercial counterpart. So whenever there is a story which you want to tell in such a way, in a particular way, where you have written your script accordingly, but you're bound to follow their path because the money is involved in it. You won't find any producer. And most of the producers, they are also male. We hardly heard about any female producers.
Exactly.
I mean, so finally, after making a film, you need to distribute that in order to
Right,
sustain, in
right.
order to make more films.
Right.
So your commercial angle is also scrapped here.
Yeah.
So how difficult for you as an independent filmmaker to distribute your films, where all the distributors are also dominated by?
That is why when I made all the I made movies which belong to the middle path, so-called middle path, not too commercial, not too mainstream, but also not that radical. This is a problematic zone also. This is a zone where artists often fall in prey to the pretension. But we had to tread this path because of commercial reasons. This is one thing. The other thing, as I was saying in the earlier part, that it is not difficult for women media workers, as we have been fed with these scraps, but it is also not easy. It is also not sensible.
Absolutely.
And so in a way it is definitely not a happy cakewalk, but at the same time, if you are intelligent enough, if you can mold your story into their story, if you can hide and somehow your story into their story, it can be done. But that is also not a very easy job.
But who are they here? They basically sometimes the producers also.
Yes. Another thing I want to mention, that even if you find any woman producer or woman director, it is not necessary that they are being woman in their position, because whenever we see any women in the leadership position, those women are expected to behave like men.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because it is said and believed that typical women traits are not
For leadership.
not good for leadership positions. So they actually
Another preconceived notion of the
exactly. So the women leaders, be they writer, director, or CEO or producers, they mostly, because also you have to reckon with this fact that filmmaking is a highly commercial thing.
Yeah.
Unlike painting or writing a story or poetry, it is you have to rely on other people's money.
Absolutely. It's a group project also.
It is an industry. It is a capital intensive zone, and capital is very much patriarchal.
That's the point.
Yes. Producer will definitely not allow you to tell a kind of story which is not sellable. So, if a woman or Dalit filmmaker, they want to narrate their stories, they will have to position themselves, and they have to convince the market / the producers that their stories are also sellable.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for this comprehensive discussions and insights.
Thank you.
Well, we had a fantastic discussions on the topic filmmaking, women filmmaker in India, from Fatima Begum to Payal Kapadia. This is Subhrajeet Ganguly, and you were listening to the Heritage Pod. Keep listening and watching for such content. This is Subhrajeet signing off.